87% of realtors that get into the business get out of the business after 2 years. That does not exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
We have interviewed some of the top realtors in the world. If you're a new realtor, a top producer, or CEO of a mega team, Sales Beast Podcast is your blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us to talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm the boss.
Welcome to another episode of the Sales Beast Podcast. We are very lucky today to have the one and only Dan Plowman with us today. Dan is one of the top realtors, not only in Ontario, but in the country, and has been for a very, very long time. I heard you mention, Anna, that the reason we started this podcast was to get free coaching. And this is a free coaching call I'm super excited for, because I know he's also got an elite coaching business that caters to the Canadian marketplace. So if anyone's looking for coaching, you don't have to be Canadian. I know he's got some American clients also. Reach out to Dan. He's one of the best in the business. Dan, thank you for joining us today. That was my intro.
Thank you for the plug as well, and I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be here. Thanks.
So that's seriously why we started this podcast. There are many people like you that kind of are where we want to be in our future. It's our belief that if we hang out with people like you, eventually we'll become you or our own version of you. So thank you for spending time with us today. Can we maybe go back to the beginning? I know you didn't start in this business. It sounds like you were in HVAC. Got into this business at a relatively young age. You hit the ground running, rookie of the year. How did all that start?
Out of fear, mostly. 25 years old, 3 children, and very scared that I just sold a company that was already making money to go into real estate, thinking I was coming into the best business in the world. By the way, I believe we do work in the best business in the world. But my first 4 to 5 years, that was quickly a thought that changed. I'll tell you, when I hit the ground, yes, running, in that I knew how to work 60, 70 hours a week. But there were realtors leaving our business. It was bleeding fast. November of 89, the market just turned on a dime. Interest rates within 6-8 months had gone to over 16%. People were handing their keys back to the banks. Our real estate board at the time, that had 3,000 members, within 24 months was cut in half. Realtors were just leaving. And here's me going, wow, this is interesting. I honestly thought, coming into real estate, because when I was in HVAC, whether it was at church or at a school event or whatever the realtor pulled up in a Mercedes Benz and had the nicest jewelry, I thought, wow, these guys are rich. I want to be a realtor, right? Little did I know, 2 years later, the cars were being repoed and they were, pawning the jewelry. But I'm exaggerating a bit, and I'm not. So, it was tough the first few years, but I did start, I believe, with what was the very best tool you can have, and that was an understanding of what it meant to work hard. Because I built an HVAC company up to 21 people, and I sold it at the young age of 25. And I'd already been working, like I said, 60, 70 hours a week. I was not afraid to work those kinds of hours. And I think that formula in any market for real estate, you will succeed. You can push hard enough with anything and get results. I also know now, after 34 years in the business, that when you combine the right tools with a great work ethic, astronomical results. So
I have a
couple
question.
Things stand out to me there. You mentioned 1989. That was about the time that I was entering this planet. So I have no idea how challenging that was. I know it was tough on my mother, but for me, it was smooth sailing. And then, unfortunately, 2008, I was hiding away in universities. I had other things on my mind that were not the economy. And I think a lot of people listening to this are probably in my situation. This is the first time we've ever really seen a shift. This will be the first time we may enter a recession that it actually matters to us. What are some of the things you did that helped you overcome that?
So that's a great question. And not just from 89, there's been a couple of others. I think there's probably been 5 shifts in markets that I would mark as, historical, 3 for sure in the past 30 plus years that I've been in real estate. And I'm very grateful that at 25, at a young age, I was able to come into a business and find my groove, something that I love the most. And the reason I came was quite simply because the portion of the the HVAC company that I liked the most was the sales at night. So that's what, motivated me, inspired me to sell it, use some of that revenue. By the way, I didn't sell it for much. It was like $45,000. It was payments monthly of a couple grand a month. My brother was paying me. So it wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough to help those first few months. But to answer your question more specifically with regards to how do you handle shifts or changes, because I don't think that this would have been a question that was posed 3 or 4 years ago when the market shifted and real estate went up. Who would have thought real estate would get busier during a pandemic, right? But it happened. So I don't think you would have asked the question when the market's going up and we're getting more deals and there's more momentum. Nobody says, why is it changing or what's going on? No, we talk about it and it's fun, but it's not so much from an angle or a question of what can we do to make sure we do well to prosper in this kind of market, right? I think that's kind of the spirit of the question. Was that fair to say? Because when I say it in that light, it kind of changes how we listen and how we hear what I'm about to say. I genuinely believe in my heart, and I've seen it more than once, and this is an ideal market for what I'm about to say. The changes that are happening now are only going to create more opportunities for us. And that's right here. That's mindset. Like, you got to just think for a minute. Well, what does that mean? Well, sure, the low-lying fruit. We could, we used to be able to just do an open house or somebody show up and just wanted to see homes and would do an offer that night. Our biggest problem was having 20 offers at a presentation. We're hoping ours was one of them that got, accepted. And if not, we were showing more homes the next day. But I was selling this person a house. Eventually, I had to do 15 or 20 offers with this person. I was going to sell them a house. I'm busy. Or with listings, if I had the listing, it was a guaranteed sale because I was going to get 30 offers on it, right? So what can I do to get listings now? What can I do to get buyers off the fence now that are serious? And these are specific language and consulting, not tactics, but actual real languages and understanding of what people are feeling that we as consultants, I don't love the term salespeople, but I'll use it because we're governed as such. But I will tell you this, if we don't understand what it means in this shifting market to take advantage of the changes that are coming down the pipeline, we're going to be left out. And I'm already seeing realtors struggling to the point where they're like, forget it, I'm out. I'm already seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm already seeing it. And the thing that frustrates me the most, by the way, in these markets that change is when we lose good realtors. Now, I mean, everybody, when I say that, has thoughts in their mind, and maybe somebody dealt with last week and they say, I wish that person would leave. And they might, they may not. But look, at work ethic may not be enough as markets shift, depending on how long it shifts and how long it stays tough, may not be enough. So the tools or the specifics that I think you're asking for is what people are really interested in. Look, whatever you're good at, turn it up tenfold. Whatever you're good at, do it 4 times, at least 4 times. I say tenfold, I'll expect 4 times from people. So back in the day, 1990, 91, 92, realtors leaving the business. And I would ask top producers, what do you do? How do you get your deals? How do you make money? And they would tell me, look, I meet people. Back then, there was no internet. Yes, I'm that old. But, they would meet people. How do they meet people? Well, this was a common denominator that whenever I spoke to a top producing realtor, they always did an open house every weekend. They didn't know. Why do you do an open house? Well, to meet people. Well, you sell the house? No, we never sell the house. You never sell the house for an open house. But you meet people. Okay, that's interesting. So there's a common denominator. So what did I do? I started to do open houses 2 on a weekend. I did that for about 6 months. Noticed some results. And I said, well, that works. So what if I do 2 open houses on a Saturday and 2 on a Sunday? What if I do 4 every weekend? I was the one in Durham region that introduced 12 to 2:30 and then 3 to 5 open houses. There was 2 instead of just 1 to 3 or 2 to 4. I was doing 2 on a Saturday and 2 on a Sunday and leaving a half hour to move signs around. That was me. So my ability to push and do more was in my mind. Okay, whatever I'm doing that's successful, let's replicate or duplicate or make it quadruple. So in your mind, whatever you're good at that you're doing now, do it greater, do it stronger, do it more. That's the first thing I would say to people. The next, because that's easy. That's an easy one, right? Just double or triple or quadruple what you're doing now and you're good at, right? You will get business from that. I will suggest that whatever you have been doing, if it's not working, stop pushing. It's not working. Okay. So I would seek out from other teams or other people who are having successes. Look, we're still selling pretty much a house every day. And I'm not saying that to boast or to brag. I'm saying that because I know the systems work well. What do I teach my team members, my partners on my team, sure, I teach them, push harder, guys, do more open houses, do more of what we've been doing, or we're going to be left behind. And they are. So as a result, we're seeing better results. I think there's going to be greater gaps in our industry from people that produce and do well, our teams, and the individuals who were struggling or maybe just getting by. I think a lot of them are going to fall off. You need to step it up right now, is what I'm trying to say to answer your question. There are many other things with regards to lead generation that will create, I like to say this, create a lot of fence sitters. So you'll talk to people on the phone, use all the qualifiers and all the right language to have people tell you, well, we're just not sure right now. We're just not sure right now. Well, let me tell you, those are great people. Anybody today that has filled anything out online or put their hand up and called in or maybe come through an open house, other than maybe my mom, they're serious about buying or selling. And I mean that. Whether they buy or sell with you today or in 6 months should not matter, unless you're leaving the business in 5 months, right? Or if they buy today or in 2 years, should not matter, unless you're broke and need the dough right now. But if that's your motivation for selling homes, you get another job, right? You should be well ahead of that by having enough and abundance of people and opportunities. And but by the way, whatever's going on right now in your life with regards to your business is a direct byproduct of what you were doing 90 days ago. So change right now, and you will have a completely different 90 days from now. And by that, I mean, audit your time. Audit your time. What are you doing from the time you get up at 8 or 7 in the morning until 8 or 9 o'clock at night when you shut down? And I have a time audit. One of the things we do with our clients is we do a time audit where they have to mark every 15 minutes what they're doing, or every half hour if that's too hard. It's not an easy task for a week. And then we go back through and we do, okay, what was dollar productive activities, what was not. And it's incredible to see in a whole week of activities how much was actually dollar productive. I'm kind of peeking through that crack because it's not much. It's not much. But we always focus on, oh my gosh, I need more. I need more deals. I need more money. I need more this. I need more that. And well, you know what? We live in a materialistic world. Money's not a bad thing. But if you want more dollars, focus more on dollar productive activities that actually make sense. And now what does that mean? Well, then we talk to them about what we could do specifically in our schedule to create dollar productive activities. And then how do you stay inspired, motivated, and follow that? So I know I just answered your question with a lot of stuff, and that's without coffee. I just want you to know that. So I hope that helps.
I've had a couple cups. I need to keep up with you, I think. But you had some great points there. And I think about some of the things you said, like if we look at Costco, for example, Costco is an amazing brand. They work with thousands of different suppliers. They're open 9 to 9 or whatever their hours are. And the customers know that they're open every single day. When we focus our time on things that are not dollar producing, like lead generation and lead follow-up, we're essentially saying to consumers that our doors are closed. So if we're only doing an hour of lead gen, that's our open hours. And I think realtors don't necessarily realize that. That doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be on 24/7, but we need to be doing those dollar per hour activities.
Love it. Love it. I agree.
So a question for you, obviously having experienced several different shifts, what do you think the difference is between this shift and the previous ones? And what opportunities do you see in this market right now?
Well, I mean, the difference in this shift, in my opinion, is that the price point for homes is still high and hasn't come down relative to the interest increase. I mean, compared to had we bought a home and fought through the multiple offers 2 years ago. So is it close? Yeah. Would I rather buy in this market than that one? Yes. It's funny. My wife and I had this conversation the other night because we talked about moving during the craziness a couple of years ago, and we didn't move. And we talked about it again recently, and I said I'd rather do it now than then because there's more to choose from. So this kind of market, more opportunities for buyers that are sitting on the fences, you have more to choose from. You can put the conditions back in. I'm seeing condition on sale properties again. I'm condition on financing inspection. It's back, but I'm not seeing multiples are almost completely gone in most markets. I just talked to one of my clients from BC, same thing. They're feeling the same thing. So more opportunities there. So anybody who was sitting on the fence that didn't buy, by the way, it's interesting. We talked to one of my realtors, one of my partners on the team, and they made an interesting point at our last meeting. They said half of their deals this year have come from people that were sitting on the fence that didn't buy in the last 2 to 3 years, half of them. So what are you doing? I'm talking to them about the opportunity now and how it's a greater time and better time to buy now than it was. So I think a lot of what we do as realtors when a market shifts is we freeze and we get scared. And guess what buyers and sellers do? They freeze and they get scared because they see the news and they see gloom and doom. Well, eventually that just becomes the norm. That goes away, becomes white noise. But the dream deep down rooted inside to make the move for whatever the reason, because I need a bigger basement or I need a double car garage or whatever it is, that comes back up again, even though the rates have gone up 4 or 5 points, and they make the move. The biggest mistake realtors make is to not follow up with people. What used to be 2 touches and I got a deal is now 7 with a client. And that's not going away. That's not going away. So if you don't have a strong contact database or CRM that allows you to stay in contact with people, if you don't have a very strong one that will allow you to stay in contact with people regularly, you're failing. You're going to have a problem. You're going to lose those deals because I'm going to sell them or somebody else.
Yeah, I think there's a huge element. I'll explain a little bit about my background. I started on the telephone. I used a Mojo dialer.
Gotcha.
And I hated to follow up. Fortunately, I've changed my ways. I got what really clicked in. It was a couple things. One was this guy, Jeff Glover, who had terrible habits like I did. He changed his way. Now he's got a massive business in Detroit. But really, it was this book I read called Fanatical Prospecting, and it talks about.
I know the book well.
So good.
I know the book.
Anyone that hasn't read it definitely needs to read it.
Great book.
But it talks about this concept of familiarity. So basically, what you do, you speak to someone so much that eventually they remember your name. And what I find is that through my relentless follow-up, I often don't call them to book the listing appointment. Someone that was a stranger a year ago ends up calling me.
Right. Well said. I love it.
And
love it.
It's so cool. The come list me's, if your call frequency is relentless, or they go through the roof, and it's amazing.
I agree, 100%. Just look at that. That was a great book. I love that book, Fanatical Prospects.
So good.
I remember the author. I can't remember who it was.
The other thing I find too, and I think I know the reason for this, when you're on the telephone today, far less people are complaining that you're the 5th realtor that's called me today. And I think a couple things happens when you go through a shift. Number one, people leave the business, but 2, I think it's even more impactful. They get discouraged. And like you said, they stop doing the dollar productive activities. They stop working. So yeah, are there fewer transactions to go around? 100%. But it seems as though there are far fewer people fighting for those pieces of business.
Yeah, it will, especially when you're in the cusp, it's harder. But as it comes out in the wash, so if we're in this market for the next 2 years, I do believe it makes it better. It's easier, if you will. I don't want to use that term because I know a lot of people are struggling, but it can be easier. I'll say it that way. I agree with you.
Well, I always come back to the phrase, you can't teach a fearful audience a fearless tactic. And so for those realtors that are super fearful right now, they're not fearless in the fact that they need to make that prospecting time happen. So they're scared of what people are going to say. They make generalizations of, why would I call anyone? Nobody wants to buy right now. Is that the actual truth though? No.
I hear, I think it was The Rock. I think he says one day or day one, which is in your head. One day I'll do that, or one day and I've talked to a lot of realtors. Yeah, I know I should. I know all the things I should be doing, but I don't do it. But I will one day. Is it, is it day one? I'm going to start now, or is it one day? And again, it comes back to this, right? I talked to a lot of top producing realtors who have been in a funk, if you will, doing 100+ deals a year, and they call it a funk because they haven't moved off that number for years. So, John Maxwell talks about ceilings of complexity. You bust through another one, or you just stay there. You keep bouncing off of it. I can remember the first time I did 20 deals in a year. I was a rock star. I was a millionaire, as far as I was concerned. And then all of a sudden I got to 50, and then 75 and 100. And I remember floating out 100 for a long time, and I'd come back down to 80, 180, and I couldn't push through that. But these are all ceilings of complexity. But what changed first was my brain, my thought process, my mindset to realize, look, this is my space. And if I want to stay here, it's okay. But if I don't, I need to seek the answers as to how to bust through. And your questions are directed at that. What do we do to bust through to ensure that we maximize our opportunities to take advantage of this market that's shifting? Because we're shifting. There's no question. We have shifted. Yes, we have shifted. And again, the biggest thing I can say to people is turn up whatever you're good at, and yell it from the highest mountain. Spend more time than you ever did in this business. I'm not saying you didn't work when the market was, a little easier with a little lower hanging fruit, if you will. But if you were doing a 30, 40-hour work weeks, go to 60, go to 70. It's okay. People say work smarter, not harder. Well, sometimes that works really well. But you know what else works well is to work harder. And I'm not sure that I'm convinced that the habits that everyone has in our industry are best for your business. And I say that because I have full-time partners on my team, and I'm talking about some of these people that take 2 and 3 months a year off and, maybe work 2 or 3 evenings a week. They know that those times might be gone for a while. They know that they might have to work 5, 6 evenings a week again. And these are people that have been in the business, all my partners on my team, for 12, 15 years. They know. They're talking about it. They're saying, guys, it's shifted. But they all say the same thing. It's interesting, especially the ones that have been here more than 10 years. I'd rather work in this market.
Well, it's be do have, not have do be. You have to be that person first and show up with the right habits before you get to achieve what you want, right?
Well said.
And so obviously it's no small feat to have an average of a home sold every single day, but yet that's what you guys have achieved. And you must have some great systems and tools that you guys have implemented. So can you give us a sneak peek to some of the systems, some of the things that you guys do as a team that allow you guys to sell on average 1 home per day?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it started back in 1989, 1990, when I was the first one to put my name on a park bench in Durham region, and I got a letter from, I won't say the brand, I got a letter through my broker from the head office of the brand that I was working for at the time, saying your agent's name can't be bigger than our brand. And he said, how do you want to handle this? And I said, tell them nothing, or say, too bad, that's what I'm doing, fire me, because I was a huge advocate and believed that if I'm spending money on this ad, I've got your logo there and your name, but I want my name bigger because it's my name that I believe people are going to call. But it didn't bode well. They did not fire me, kind of went away, and I got another park bench. I got another one. So I'm going way back here, but it started with building a big brand, and that took time. Now, I don't recommend anyone go bust the bank and start buying billboards and park benches. That's not what I'm saying. But when I got to the point through the systems I implemented, which did include lead generation and lead conversion using the proper language and the proper CRM so that I was organized and not dropping people, things weren't falling through the cracks. As I slowly did that and got pretty good at it, eventually I did reach the status of #1 realtor in Durham region, which we've maintained for over a decade now here. And I'm grateful for my partners that I have. We do very, very well by that. But your question was more specific to what are the systems that attribute or contribute to that. And I go back to my branding because I do believe that helped to the beginning. Now I spend good money on branding. So my agents, my partners on my team, they equate portions of their business from, like, the lead conversion department, 30%. A healthy number should be 30%. For a team should be helping provide you with about 30% of your business. 30% comes from your own efforts that we help and show people specifically what they can be doing. This is the difference, in my opinion, between, a big brokerage and maybe a team that has a team leader whose agenda is that you make money, that you get up and running first year to 6 figures with no expenses, and then quickly get to 250 as fast as you can, and then go from there if you wish. Listen, I had a top guy on my team last year made over 700 grand with no expenses. So you can run in any business, even in a brokerage. I'm not saying team's the end all be all, but I am saying a great team leader will provide you with the insight and the specifics of things that you should be following. And if you do it, you'll win here, and here. So specifically though, what we're doing, I believe, really, really well, other than the branding, we have a great online presence, and the conversion that comes in when we put cast webs out or buy leads, you can buy pay-per-click leads. We do that. And I've said this at conferences. I'll say it again right now. Be very careful. Don't leave here and blow $2,000 next month on pay-per-click leads. You can, but you'll probably hate them at the end of the month or 2 months unless you understand how to convert those. It's a different language, first of all. And the follow-up is extremely valuable. And too many realtors, if they don't get an appointment right now, they see that lead as garbage. So again, that's mindset. Change it. Have a very strong, as I mentioned, CRM to organize yourself and stay in touch with people. I consider a win when somebody says, yeah, you can stay in touch with me, but I'm not moving right now. We're thinking about it in a few years. I consider that a win. So I do. It's a follow-up. I've just made a contact, and that's a win. That may not be a win that comes to fruition. I can't tell you how many times I sit in my meetings with my partners, and they'll say, "Hey, shout out to the ISAs, inside sales agents on our team. I just listed a lady's home. They've been in contact with for 3 years." That's, and I don't know too many realtors who would do that. But like lead conversion partners on my team, their profile for this position, they 6 hours a day max, no more than that, prospecting, or you'll go nuts. So there's a number of things that we do. I think the biggest thing to answer your question would be the word diversified. We're well diversified in leads.
What are your pillars? So it sounds like there's some bus benches, billboards, online leads,
Radio.
Radio.
Yeah, online leads we're pretty big there too. Lead conversion, the lead conversion department or inside sales agents, where they're dedicated licensed realtors who prospect for field rep partners. They have set hours, so they don't list homes. They don't work with buyers. That's all they do is book appointments for field rep partners. They're base plus, and that's how they're paid. But we, as a team leader, I'm constantly focused on making sure that they have an abundance of opportunities to be calling that are of value, whether that comes in from 5 or 6 different sources. Doesn't bother me, but they do. They come in through different sources, so they're constantly. And the other big thing for the lead conversion partners, and I recommend this, by the way, you're all lead conversion partners. Everybody does their own lead conversion until you have a team that does these. Because as an individual realtor, I wear all the hats. So everything I'm talking about, you probably already do yourself, right? So when I talk about lead conversion, it's important you understand the speed in which you call any lead back is critical these days. Don't think you can buy a lead from whatever company you're buying it from. And I'm not going to say any names. I think all leads are good leads. I don't care where you're getting them from. Unless it literally says Mickey Mouse or Superman or Spider-Man, they're probably not good leads. Other than that, all leads are good leads. Start right there and call them back immediately. Just because you get a lead text or email to you doesn't mean that person that just filled that out in their living room doesn't deserve a call back within 12 minutes or 8 minutes or 5 minutes. They do. And it makes a big difference, because a lot of realtors will buy these leads and say they're crap or garbage because they call them back the next day because they were at dinner. And the people they're calling now have done 400 different things in that 24-hour period. And they're like, who are you? What is this? They don't even remember what they're talking about. When we call leads back immediately, and most people are inquiring online from their living rooms, guess what they say? Oh, wow, that was fast. How are you?
Well, that's the thing. After 5 minutes, I believe the conversion drops 80%.
Well said.
After the next 10 minutes, it's like 1% or less chance of conversion.
Everything is so fast today. You're right. I agree. So something comes into our systems and it's almost immediate that they're on that lead. The only reason it wouldn't be is if they're talking to somebody else and they see a lead pop up. They try to get off the phone quick with that person because they want to be well within that first 5 minutes. Well said.
I have a question for you. So it sounded like you built your you built your business story with the fundamentals, prospecting, lead conversion, before you ever jumped into the world of spending a lot of money on internet leads and advertising. For anyone looking to move from, I don't think you should ever get away from prospecting and following up with your leads, but for anyone that's looking to add some other lead generation pillars, such as billboards or online leads, do you have any recommendations of what your profitability should look like, how much money you should spend on these activities?
So, yeah, I mean, you said a few things in there. One of the first things you said, though, was you kind of got your systems up and running before you buy your leads. I'm glad you said it like that, because most realtors, from my experience, and I've made the mistake. I'm not pigeonholing anybody in this comment because I've made the mistake. I did it the opposite way many times and burnt money. In other words, don't buy leads before your systems are in place. Don't buy leads before you understand what it means to have a proper dialect specific to whatever lead source you're generating. How you call your past clients that you've been ignoring for a year should include some humility before you start asking them for the referrals. That's going to be 3 or 4 conversations later. How you respond to an online lead is a completely different conversation of qualifying and creating what's called reciprocity in the conversation early, so that you're not deemed a telemarketer or you're wasting my time. You sound like a salesperson. I don't want to talk to you. You got to be very, very careful how you communicate with people. Get those skills up to par, get your organization up to par, the CRM, then start to invest money in lead gen. I'm glad you said it like that. And the last part of your question, ask it again, please.
From a profitability standpoint, do you have a certain profit margin you look to hit on an annual basis? How much as a rule of thumb should people throw into this?
It's a relative number, right? So it's interesting. I spoke, I don't know, a year ago, whatever it was, and there was a gentleman. He said, "So what's your profit percentage like? What's your profit like?" I said, "Well, I can assure you, it's a lot lower than yours." He said, "Well, why would I do this?" And I said, "Well, because I'd rather have 20% of $4 million than 80% of 100 any day of the week." So that scale, by the way, for my branding, as far as numbers go, has changed drastically over the years. And we're noticing some realtors blowing the budget on billboards, bus benches, and buses, really buying their business, pumping and dumping everything back in, maybe even all of the profit. And I get what they're doing. I see it. I understand. You could buy a brand, you could buy a name. You'll have a hard time maintaining great systems, though, if you're not very careful and keeping quality people. So I'll answer your question by saying this: go easy on the branding. You don't need, your brand will happen organically as your signs grow. So, and by the way, you're going to see days on the market for signs get longer. So, get as big a sign as you can all along, if you want some cheap billboards, because they're going to stay there for a little longer as time goes on here. I can remember 45, 50 days on the market like it was nothing. I can remember having listings for 90 days, 120 days. I'm not kidding. And it was okay, but now people panic after 12, 15 days because, oh my gosh, I just paid $3,000 in staging. How the heck am I gonna? Oh, but they'll renew for half price next month. Okay, so you're $4,500 into a listing, not to mention the photography or anything else you've done, and you're only at the second month. What if days in the market go to 3 months? You're going to be what, $5,000, $6,000 into a stager? Before, like, I mean, I'm maybe, I'm not trying to paint a picture of gloom and doom here, but I am saying you're going to see some serious changes in our industry. You're going to see some big changes in how people handle their listings. I'm already seeing realtors walk into people's homes and say, "Oh, you don't need to stage this house. We'll do it. We'll do it together. It'll look great. It'll look great. Don't worry." And taking their own pictures with their own phone and trying to save money because they're worried it's going to sit on the market. They're worried it's going to sit on the market. So I didn't really answer your question, but I kind of answered your question.
Yeah, I think
it's a balance. You go ahead, Anna.
I was just going to probably say a very similar thing to you. Is I think if realtors are worried that a property is sitting on the market, they probably don't have the right system, first of all, for how to sell it, or they haven't priced it appropriately.
Or they're chasing the market, which they do with clients often. I mean, predetermined price reductions are a powerful thing when you go into list a home and you give them, as a consultant, you should never own price, first of all. You should help people understand and realize through education that their price being average means they're not going to sell. And when you show things properly to most consumers, they're realistic. But then I will tie that point to what is the motivation. So you got to be careful. I'll sell it if I get this number. If I don't care, I don't care if I don't get my $2 million for my house that's worth 1.5 right now. I know realtors that would take that listing. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of them, but I will tell you this: there's other people who have to move, who still chase the market, and you're going to have those listings for 3 or 4 months. It's going to expire with you. You're going to be out of pocket $4 or $5,000, and they're going to list with somebody else right after and sell it in the first few weeks because that person's going to go in and know how to do exactly what you just said. Use the right language, how to price it properly. Well said.
What do you? Before we go on, I have a question about this. So we have a ton of sellers, obviously, who are hanging on for dear life to pricing that was available, say, early 2022. What are some of the strategies you guys use to bring those people to the real world and help them self-discover that maybe if they price their home at those 2022 prices, it could really end up hurting them in the long run?
Yeah, I think the first thing that's important is to understand motivation. Okay, if somebody has to move, they will genuinely listen to logic and reason more than somebody who doesn't care and doesn't have to move. If I don't get my price, I'm not moving. Well, that conversation is pretty easy. You leave there on a good note, take on a good friend, and ask to be able to follow up with them at any time. And it's interesting because you'll see some of those list their home at their price anyway, but they don't sell. It's okay. It's okay, but they're in your database and you can stay in touch with them. You were the one that was honest with them, integral with them. But the ones, I think, let's go down that path and talk about the ones who have to sell because they've been transferred to a job offer in the West Coast or in Calgary or whatever, or they're moving east, whatever, or someone who is moving because, well, I want a bungalow now. I'm done with the big 2-story home. The kids have moved out and I'm ready to move. Whatever, if there's motivation there, I think the smartest thing to do as a consultant is to show people what's happening in the market with regards to prices. Show them the scale of slides. Show them how things have moved. It's usually relative when somebody's buying and selling. If they're moving to a different market, you can talk to realtors in that market and probably show similarities. So it sets them at ease a little bit. The other thing that's important to do, if somebody waits to sell, this may be applicable, it may not. If you continue to wait, if we've done this in 8 months, where are we going to be in 8 months from now if it continues? So you can show a projection historically based on what's happened if it continues down this path. Am I trying to instill fear? No, I'm just trying to show the facts of what's going on. People will draw their own conclusions. I do believe it's very important, and I teach this, it's very important to draw this or show this in a visual, whether it's a laptop or an iPad. I still love pen and paper when it comes to showing the sliding scale on numerics and how statistically where we've come from, where we're going, and where we're going to end up. If you wait, we need to get ahead of the market. So I think visuals are very, very important. There's just a few things. There's many, many things that we do strategically in a listing presentation after we've got buy-ins that people have already agreed we're the best for the job and yes, they want us to move forward. Then it just comes down to price and commission. And unfortunately, price was not an obstacle most are used to in this past 3 or 4 years. As a matter of fact, there were many conversations a couple of years ago where people would say a price and we say, oh, no, we're going to go higher. Those were fun times, guys, right? But when it comes down to price and commission, after you've handled everything else and people want your services because they see the value for them, I genuinely believe then it's just logistics from there. I hope I answered.
Yeah, I think you did.
Great.
I think you're giving a lot of insight into certain things that maybe a lot of people aren't considering. I think it comes down, like you said, to not just educating your client, but consulting them on what's happening. At the end of the day, they're going to make the decision that they believe is right for them. But if you're the one that's coming at it from an integral standpoint, you're showing them, facts and the truth. And most of the times with a really good perspective of what's going to happen in the next few months, they're always going to look back to you.
Right. I agree. Even if they go through a listing that expired with somebody else.
Exactly. Awesome. So I wanted to ask some questions around your current organization. So obviously you went from a brand new rookie agent 30 odd years ago to now having your own brokerage, having a coaching company. So can you give us an insight into what your organizational structure looks like, who you have on your team, what integral role you kind of play now as the team leader? Let's chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, as a team leader, I attend the Monday and Friday meetings. I have a director of operations who's here for the day-to-day, always here to answer realtors' questions. She's actually been in the business longer than myself. Very well respected in the industry, high knowledge, doesn't practice sales, but is here for the team as director of operations and oversees every department from lead conversion or ISAs to the marketing department, as well as the field rep partners. My job as a team leader is to ensure that abundance is taking place. In other words, realtors on the team and partners are working in abundance. They have opportunities. And if they don't, what are we doing to create, or what are they doing to help create those? Momentum is key for those people. And then there's some people on the team that maybe just don't want to do and they're not going to make the cut, and that's okay, because that's part of the world too, that makes the world go round. And we, out you go, and then comes the new one. But we try not to have a cyclical kind of feeling in this environment. We don't generally. We, like I said, I've had people on the team for over 10 years, and quite a few for more than 12 or 14. But most, though, I would say, that are here have come the last 7 years. We just hired a couple of new ones. I'll take them out of this equation. We have about a dozen field rep partners that we've maintained great numbers with for the past few years. 4 lead conversion partners. I probably will go down to 3 very, very soon for a reason. And the reason is we're shifting some of the leads that come into that department direct to field rep partners who are on duty. We run a duty shift schedule for people that could be here to take calls. I have a great marketing team as well. The marketing team are dedicated to everything from online to new listings that come in, as well as buyer contracts, anything that we can do to make sure people are receiving their monthly newsletters. We have a great flow of different diversified departments and roles that are well understood job descriptions that are enjoyed by people who profile very well for those positions, that would do 10 times better than I would, because when I wore many hats, I was really only good under one of them, which was usually working directly with people and negotiating offers. Unfortunately, that's a very small portion of the time we spend in our business. But having said that, that just gives you kind of the Coles Notes, or a snapshot of what we do and how we're set up here. The real estate team is the brokerage. I do not hire anyone unless they're recruited or hired for the team. I don't just let realtors work in the brokerage. It's set up just for the team. And then, of course, I have the training company as well, which is a separate entity, separate corporation. And the purpose of the training company, the Dan Plowman Coaching, was so that we could provide people with what we do here turnkey, so you don't have to make any of the mistakes. I'm going to give you exactly what I do turnkey. I don't give it to people in Durham region, because it would be insane to teach my competition, but anybody outside of Durham region, right across Canada, some as far south as Texas, but mostly Canadian clients, as was mentioned when we opened. That's what we do. We want to give people the turnkey opportunities to understand the great things that we do in our systems, right from the ad you run when you're recruiting somebody for any position, how do you profile, right down to job descriptions, and then how to lead generate, how to convert the language to use buyer presentations, listing presentations. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on. So I hope that gives you an idea.
Yeah, I think you made a great point there, where each individual within your organization owns their role, has mastered it. It's not master of all, it's master of one or master of none. And I really believe that you guys have set yourself up in a really great way.
Yeah, and I can remember when I was on my own, and I'm surprised there's not more hair gone. I was pulling my hair out when I got to about 67 deals a year on my own, literally on my own. And I had to go one way or the other. I had to get back to about 40, which is when I was not dropping balls and literally, pardon my language, pissing people off. Or I had to leverage great people, technology, and marketing, which I'm glad I went down that path. I didn't know it would get this big, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Good people, really great people is important.
What was that when you were younger and you were doing 40, 50, 60 deals a year? What did you envision for your future? Was this something you sat and planned, or did it organically just evolve?
No, I was a little motivated and inspired to have more time this time around with my I have kids that are in their 40s, and I have kids that are 19, 17, and 15. I reference them as first litter, second litter, because they hate it. Okay. So my younger children now, I have dinners with them. I spend weekends with them. The first group of kids, and I joke, and we all get along great. They all live in Durham. I'm so grateful. We're all very close. But the older kids that now have my grandkids, my older kids, I didn't see them much growing up. I didn't. I was like 60, 70-hour work weeks. I wasn't there. The most I think I remember, going in their bedroom and, pulling their blankets up and, rubbing their head and saying goodnight, giving them a kiss in the cheek, but they didn't see daddy much. And that was deep. That was painful for me. So when I had the opportunity and it came into play that I married again, kids, wasn't expecting to go that path, but when you fall in love with someone, and that's what happens, and now 3 beautiful children younger, my big drive and motivation was to not make that mistake again. And, real estate, although it can be very demanding, it can also offer us the very best business in the world that allows for freedoms and a lot of money. And a lot of people have a problem with that. A lot of people don't believe that, because our psyche isn't trained to actually believe I can have more money and spend less time doing it. Yes, it's possible with the right tools. My dad's the youngest of 17 kids, and he was dragged out of school at grade 6 in Newfoundland, very remote, no plumbing, no hydro. And he got the most schooling of all 17 kids. At grade 6, he was pulled out because he was old enough to pull a team of horses. They were lumberjacks. So, again, do you think growing up around my dad that the language was, you can have more if you work less? No, it was always, you want more, work harder, get 3 jobs. That's what I grew up with. That's what most people grew up with, right? So, when I talk to people and explain, listen, you can work smarter. You can work smarter. You just have to have the right systems and the right tools. It's hard for people, because people, whenever they hear me talk about coaching, all the things we're going to do and all the things we're going to get you 40 or 50 deals a year, which is not a problem. We can do that quickly. Their brain is fighting them, because they genuinely, all they see is, I don't want to work that hard, and it's interesting. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there from your question.
I really love your perspective there. I feel like a lot of coaches, team leaders, they're almost living in fear when it comes to telling their people that they need to work really hard.
Yeah.
Like I imagine if anyone listening to this took your advice, worked 70-hour week, 80% of those 70 hours was on dollar productive activities that actually make you money, you would destroy.
Even
guarantee you
even
that.
50%, man. Yeah, you're right.
Like, crazy. Nice, you're Newfoundlander, right? Your family is?
I
My
knew
dad
I'd
is.
make a comment on that. East
I
Coast.
have to. I'm from Nova Scotia. We have a connection.
Gotcha. Right on East Coast. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was born here in Richmond Hill, but my dad is Corner Brook. Yeah, Port Sun.
Okay, nice. That's very cool. That's my little. I live in Hamilton, and that's where I work. That's my little magic weapon here. Seems
Right
like
on.
half the people here are from the East Coast. It's the first thing that comes out of my mouth.
My brother just bought a place in Nova Scotia. He's leaving. He's leaving Ontario.
Wow.
Okay, tons of people doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Ontario people to Nova Scotia are what Torontonians are to Oshawa or Hamilton.
And
Not
yeah,
well liked.
how do the Nova Scotia folks feel about all the Ontario people coming out?
Not well liked until they actually meet them, and
Yeah.
they love everyone out there.
That's
Like
what I
the
heard,
second-
but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're kind.
Through COVID, it was really bad too. I was getting a lot of people moving out there, and I think they were not very happy, especially during like the mandates and whatnot.
Yeah, the pandemic. Yeah, that made sense. But I get it now, and I mean now it's just like wow. And the medical I hear is tough there. It's rough right now. The medical
Yeah.
system even harder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have any other questions, Anna?
No, I was gonna say, Dan, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, get to ask you some great questions, and hear a little bit about what you guys have been building, and just be a part of your world in a small way. We have one last question for you that we ask all of our guests, which is, who do you know, Dan, that we should have on the podcast?
Oh wow. Who do I know that you should have on the podcast? Gord. Well, are you Canada wide or just Toronto mostly?
Worldwide.
I'll tell you, Salt Fowler team in British Columbia. I had a nice chat with Gord today. Great guy, great team leader. Both Gord and Lisa. You have them on. You do well to have them on. They speak well. They leverage things extremely well. They have a successful team. That's British Columbia. If you wanted to do something on the West End there, or West Coast, I've always been a fan of Sam McDaddy, like him or not. So I love the guy. I think he's done some great things. I don't know if you've had him on in the past.
Not yet. We should definitely have him
Not
on.
yet. That'd be the other one I would recommend for you. I got a lot going through my mind with names, but I know you don't want to just keep going. There's a couple I'll give you right there.
For sure.
Love
Thank
it.
you so much. We really appreciate it. It's been great having you on.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you both.
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day